Hello, dear friends of the International Society of Astrological Research. This is another podcast with me, Christos Archos, and today in this show we are going to talk about the main influences of this week, but also of all of October 2019. This month is of great importance. It's really very interesting. It is going to help us a lot understand the basic concepts of our life and how some things are going to be affected. And I think this is very fascinating and very important, but also we are going to discuss other very important things. We are going to talk about the Constellation royal family. We're not going to talk about the British royal family. We're going to talk about the great constellations, the great royal family from the Greek mythology, and how all of these things affect us in our daily life, and how we can do things in our life, and how we can understand the influences of those fixed stars. Something I think that you're going to like it very much, and we're going to love it. Then we are going to talk also about the importance of the ascendant and how this ascendant really changes the way we understand ourselves, but also our own destiny, because the ascendant is very important, not just to understand how our personality works, but also it is a main significator in helping us understand how people are going to live their life and how they understand their own life. So be in tune, and we are going to talk about many things. This month, October 2019, is very important. It's going to give us a lot of information about our emotional relationships. After all, this is a Venus, this is a Libra month. It's going to help us a lot to develop and understand how we are going to react to many things, but also we are going to understand how several things are need to be changed. We talk a lot about October 2019 also in our premiere, when we are talking about how things are going to change and how things are going to develop in our own everyday life. But today we are going to talk about how things are going to change slowly in our life through this month. This month is of great importance. Let me first show you the aspects, which is of course the main thing we are going to discuss together. Here you can see, here from that region, you can see the aspects of this month from the 1st of October 2019 till to the 31st of October 2019. As you can see, there are some major events we are going to discuss. Pluto is going direct this 3 of October. Again, we have this Jupiter-Uranus aspect in the 14th of October 2019, and also we have this quintil between Pluto and Chiron. Afterwards, we are going, of course, to talk about this Mercury retrograde change in the 31st of October 2019. Of course, as you can understand, this is a month of severe changes. There is a strong Plutonian theme that is going to affect a lot the people, and I think that we're going to find some kind of gambling or some way of dealing with our financial situation and not being very careful on that. Also, I am sure that there's going to be a lot of changes in a lot of stock exchanges, especially the American one. I'm not talking about the Greek one because there is almost no Greek stock exchange, but okay. The American one, the British, of course, stock exchange is going to have a lot of changes, a lot of ups and downs the next days because of these several important aspects. But I think that you need to remember that the one that is going to be affected more is your own financial situation. Pluto going direct also always means that you need to change the way you're dealing with your life, how you understand your basic concepts of how you're feeling, how you're doing things. Pluto is in a specific house in your natal chart. That means that there are going to be rapid changes the next days because of this direction of Pluto. This stationary direct day, this is the 3rd of October, means that it's going to there are going to be a lot of changes, a lot of transformations, and always when Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto are going direct, this power is even more powerful, and there are going to be a lot of changes in emotional situation, in the way we deal with everyday life, and of course every ascendant is going to have a lot of changes. Of course, we have this Mercury going also to Scorpio, and we have this Venus squaring Pluto. There is a strong Plutonian influence. We can see it very clearly in the next days, and of course, a need to challenge our obstacles, also a need to change or to redesign our own everyday life. And sometimes you may need to see closer what happens to your personal relationships, because there is always a sense of obsession, of jealousy, envy, and we also try always with Plutonian themes to control the others. So if you have in your own natal chart aspects and planets that are a lot into Plutonian themes, that means that this is a very important period for you, because we always have to look about what happens to our own natal chart. If you have Pluto unaspected, if Pluto is very strongly aspected in your own natal chart, of course this is a very important period for you, because Pluto is doing a lot of things. We have Venus squaring Pluto, Pluto is going direct, and then of course we have this Mercury in entering Scorpio, which is of course also of great importance. Something that you need always to be really more careful, especially if you are a Scorpio, you have a Saturn in Scorpio, or you have a stellium in Scorpio, or you have this, as I said, Pluto being in conjunction with your ascendant, a midheaven, descendant, or the IC, or even if you have, for example, a Pluto unaspected. This is always something you need to be very careful in order not to have some, let's say, specific problems in your own life. But what is very important is always to look at your natal chart, because every single person has its own set of aspects in his own natal chart, and we are usually react to the aspects that are very important to our own life, which is, I think, the most important thing when we are looking at a natal chart. Then again, we have a lot of new things we can check this month. This month is very important because, on the other hand, we have this Saturnian energy taking the power after the 5th and 7th of October 2019. Saturn is going to form a square with the Sun. Also, it's going to have a quintil with Venus. Again, you can see it's going to form a sextile with Mercury. And then we are going to have again Saturn making a sextile with Venus, and then a square with Mars. And we can see this Saturn forming a lot of aspects, and we know that this Saturn is very powerful, is on the sign that rules, and that means that there are going to be a lot of changes on the way of having power to something. There are going to be a lot of obstacles sometimes, but also the ability to build things, because Saturn is very, very helpful in dealing with things and building things, and perhaps do some paperwork and work hard in making things happen. Something very important. Now, let's go for the week. We are not going to discuss anymore for the next month, because we have already talked about it in the previous show. Now we are going to talk about what is going to happen in the next week till the 7th of October 2019. As you can see, the first aspect is this Venus forming a square with Pluto. This is always an aspect that is going to bring a lot of passion, a lot of tensions. There may be the need to be in control in something. Always, I think, Venus forming a square with Pluto has to do with jealousy, but also with sexual tension. So probably Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn on the 3rd decade, they're going to feel this extreme emotional tension that is going to affect them a lot in their daily life. But also sometimes you may have an obsession about money, or an obsession about having something that may bring some kind of conflict in your personal relationships, especially those of you, as I said before, that you have Plutonian themes that are activated in your natal chart, or you have Plutonian archetypes that they are working subconsciously. So if they work subconsciously means that you are not control of it, but on the other hand you are not even aware of it, so you may not be able to do something. So when we're having this kind of Plutonian energy, we need really to deal with those things. Again, we have this semi-sextile between Mercury and Mars. It happens on the 2nd of October 2018. It's going to be very helpful for the 29th degree of Libra and the 29th degree of Virgo. This is an aspect that you can think about solutions, and not just about thinking about solutions, but after you think something, do something and change it. Mercury is about thought, Mars is about action. This is a great aspect in doing things and perhaps to deal with everyday life. So if you're a Libra, having planets around 28th, 29th degree of Libra and also 28th, 29th degree of Virgo, this is a real great aspect in helping you finding solutions in problems that you may have in your everyday life. Again, we have this Pluto going direct, as I said, in the 3rd of October 2019. This stationary direct position of Pluto is very powerful. It's going to change a lot of things, and don't forget that all of these things are going to become to their peak situation on the mid of January 2020, that we're going to have eclipses on the Cancer Capricorn axis, but also we are going to have these conjunction, this major cycle between Saturn and Pluto that is going to transform and change many things in our daily life, but also it's going to change a lot of things on the global consciousness and unconsciousness. But also we are going to find several critical things that are going to flourish in the worldwide political agenda, and we're going to have a lot of difficult situation. And of course this is those are incredible days, because I think it's going to change the history of the world. But we're going to talk about it later on. We have plenty of time and months to do that thing. Then we have this Mercury entering Pluto in the 3rd of October 2018. Of course, Cancers are going to feel more at ease because this Mercury is on your 5th house. You may feel more flirtatious. You may feel that you can communicate with your children or be more creative. Scorpio people may have the need to communicate with others, or you may dig something and find something you didn't expect it. Pisces are going to have a very great time in traveling or having a success in their old trips or in their education. I think this is also a great position for Taurus, because Taurus is going to have a lot of communication with others. It is going to bring a lot of bridges between between the people. Again, the problem is that we have this Mars entering Libra, and this Mars entering Libra is not ever a very good position. We know that this Mars is not working very well. And what I'm always saying, that this Mercury is not going to talk a lot, and this Mars is not going to act a lot. So there may be a peace on the surface, but on the inside a lot of things are going to happen, and they are going to be surfaced later on around the beginning of December, when a lot of things are going to arise on the surface, something that you are going to love a lot if you are, of course, a Taurus, Scorpio, Leo or Aquarius. And this Mars in Libra always is a power of balance, is a power of being diplomatic, and also to have justice in your everyday life. But on the other hand, there are going to be a lot of indecisiveness. People are not going to decide about things, and this is always a problem. But if you are an Aries, you may have problems in your personal relationships. If you are a Libra, you may feel a lot more tension in your everyday life. Cancers are going to have a lot of problems with their own houses and their families, and Capricorns may feel a little edgy in their professional life. And then we have the Mercury Neptune sesquidrat is not going to be very easy. If you're having planets between 0, 1st and 2nd degree of Scorpio, or in the 15th, 16th and the 70th degree of Pisces, you may feel that you are not listening what you expected, and sometimes with this aspect there is a very big imagination, and usually this imagination is not very helpful, and on the other hand there may be a confusion in your everyday matters, so you need to be very careful in your everyday life. I think that it is very important to talk about this in conjunction between Mercury, quincunx, between this Mercury and Chiron. I think this is an aspect that is going to bring a lot of problems in your everyday life if you didn't work a lot about what is going to happen in your job, because you are going to have severe problems or some not predictable events that may arise in your everyday life, so you may feel a little pushed from the others. This is not always a very easy aspect, but it is good in going to therapy and dealing with your everyday things and how your own self is not understanding a lot of things about your own self and the situations around you. On the other hand, there is a spectacular opposition between Mercury and Uranus on the 7th of October 2018. I think this is a great aspect. It's going to help you a lot in dealing everyday things in your life. Sometimes you may have some radical views and we may have some stereotypes. This is an aspect that may bring stereotypes in our everyday life. You are going to be affected if you belong to the first decade of Taurus, Scorpio, Leo and Aquarius. And of course this aspect brings a lot of nervousness, but on the other hand this is a great aspect if you want to invent something, if you want to break the chains with your past, if you want to change the way of your thinking, and you want to adopt a more constructive way on dealing with your everyday life. Finally, on the 17th of October 2019, we have a strong aspect between Sun and Saturn forming a square. This is always a difficult aspect because there are a lot of limitations and inhibitions. You may feel that you're not very worthy. Don't believe that. This is a cage you are putting your own self. You try to sometimes sabotage your own self. Don't bite those thoughts. Don't try to believe your negative emotions, and try to believe that there is always a better future for your own self and the others around you. But on the other hand, this is a great aspect if you want to take some serious decisions, and also this always brings a lot of work. Of course, Aries are going to have a lot of problems in their professional communications and professional relationships. Cancers are going to have lots of problems with their own marriage and perhaps their own family. Libra is going to have a lot of conflicts with their family, but also you are going to feel threatened and you are going to be a little in fear. Do not let fear to infiltrate your psychology. And finally we have Capricorns, that they're going to feel that a lot of inhibitions and limitations arise in their everyday life. Those the Aries, Cancer, Libra and Capricorn people that are going to be affected are those that they belong to the second decade of each sign I've already talked about. Okay, and this is the weekly influence that is going to affect the most of the people. And now we are going to talk about the royal family, but not the royal family that you know. As I said, we're not going to talk about the British royal family. We are going to talk about the great constellations, the great royal family of the constellations. If you don't know them, those constellations is the constellation of Cepheus, of Cassiopeia, Andromeda, Cetus and Pegasus. Those are the so-called constellations that belong to the royal family drama story, which is, I think, one of the greatest, the greatest stories we can find in the night sky. So, a lot of people that you have planets between the signs of Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, or even Aquarius, you're going really to find this section of the podcast very helpful, because the royal family is of great importance, where you're going to deal with natal charts, and if you have some of these fixed stars, you're going to really find these fixed stars very helpful. You're going to find them be really helpful. Let's start with Andromeda. Andromeda is the Ethiopian princess, the daughter of the Ethiopian king Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia, and the major fixed stars of this constellation is Alpha Reg in the 14th degree of Aries, Vertex in the 27th degree of Aries in 51, Mirach, which is on the 0 degree of Taurus and 24, and Adil 7 Taurus and 52. The constellation of Andromeda starts from the 1st degree of Aries and ends on the 25th degree of Taurus. If you don't know the story, I'm going to tell you a review. So we have the Queen of Ethiopia, which is Cassiopeia, and she commits a hubris against gods. She says that Andromeda and herself are better than gods, than the Nereids. Let's say a group of gods in the Hellenic, in the Greek pantheon. So hubris is when you are trying to become better from the gods, when you try to be arrogant, and when you're arrogant, the gods are punishing you. So Cassiopeia was really arrogant, and that led to the gods to punish her. So they demanded, in order not to destroy the kingdom, to sacrifice their daughter Andromeda. So Cetus, the great sea beast, was going to eat Andromeda in order for the kingdom to be at peace. So this is the main story. We have an arrogant mother. We have a father that is not in control of his own kingdom. We have someone that is going to be sacrificed, which is Andromeda. We have Cetus, the great beast, and we have Perseus, which is the hero of the story. All of this is a great drama, and I'm always fascinated when I'm finding those fixed stars that are in conjunction with your planets, because they're always something important to do with family, with our own family. Perhaps when you are having the constellation of Cassiopeia activated in your natal chart, you may have problems with arrogance, or as a woman you may have problems with your mother, or your mother in some way was not very satisfied with the relationship and the love she was given to you. When you have Cepheus, you may feel sometime in your life when you are having a family that you are not in control, and although there is a big problem in your life, although there is a big crisis in your life, you feel that you cannot do anything, although you are the king. Or on the other hand, that may give you the information that the person is going to have a father that was not in power of his own kingdom, which is incredible if you work with family constellation, because you understand how in the system you have problematic relationships that later gives us lots of information about psychological problems. If you have Andromeda, you may feel that you are going to be sacrificed, although there is nothing you done in your life, you didn't done anything wrong. If you have the constellation of Andromeda activated by planets, you may feel the victim, but also you are going to be saved just before the ring bells. And of course, if you have Ketos, Ketos is in Greek, probably you call it Cetus in English. When you have this constellation, means that there is a lot of subconscious fear and self-destructive emotions that do not let you to feel constructive in your own everyday life, something that is going to bring a lot of problems in your everyday life, something of great importance. When I see clients that have a lot of stars, a lot of fixed stars from this constellation, always means that this person may have some psychological thing that needs to be worked. Also, if you have Pegasus, we didn't talk about Pegasus, the horse with the wings. When Perseus killed Medusa in order to later kill the great sea monster, from the head, the cutted head of Medusa and the blood of Medusa, arose the Pegasus, the winged horse. And there is always the hope. When you have Pegasus in your natal chart, means that although you may have a severe, difficult situation in your own life, there is always hope for something better. There is always hope for something that is going to become real good, and you are going to change someday your life rapidly. And finally, if you have a lot of planets in Perseus constellations, you are going to become the savior, but also you are going to have a lot of tensions, a lot of events that are not very easy, perhaps even violent events that may be a problem for your everyday life. So you need to work with that. So if you're having planets in the constellation of Andromeda, I've already told you, let me again repeat the fixed stars. This is Alpharad in the 14th degree of and 80 of Aries, Vertex in the 27th degree of Aries, 51, Mirach in the 0 degrees of Taurus, 54, Adil in 7 degree of Taurus and 52, and Almach in the 14th degree of Taurus and 14. And there are a lot of books you can buy about the fixed stars. You can buy the classic one of Vivian Robson. You can buy one of the best books in fixed stars of Bernadette Brady. You can buy the great book of the president of the International Society of Astrological Research, Alexandris Mirazik, which also speaks about how the constellation, the fixed stars affecting us in our everyday life. There are a lot of great books around. You can buy, you can find a lot of things. What I found always incredible is that when we are having planets that they are in conjunction with Andromeda, is always that we even go without knowing to situations that are going to victimize us. So I may not have a problem with my family, but for some reason, when I have planets in fixed stars in Andromeda, I'm going to bring to my own life problems like the problems Andromeda had in her life, which is always fascinating how people sometimes attract some specific situations, even though their family was not problematic. And you have to remember that if you have a lot of planets having a conjunction with just 1 degree conjunction, only 1 degree conjunction, you cannot look at the Ptolemaic aspects or the secondary aspects in fixed stars. You just look if there is a conjunction between a planet or a planet with this fixed star, and if this planet needs to be from the old system. You cannot use Uranus, Neptune or Pluto. These are generational planets. They are not about you. You need to use Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus and Moon and Mars. Those are, and then perhaps Jupiter and Saturn, the Ascendant and the midheaven. Those are the only things you can use when you are doing fixed star astrology, looking at the conjunction of these planets to these fixed stars, which always brings you a lot of things in your life, especially when you're having Andromeda. For example, when you have the Sun in conjunction with a fixed star that belongs to the constellation of Andromeda, there is always a demand for liberation. There is always a demand on changing things and demanding in your life after a severe crisis. And there is always a monster that is going to come to your life that you need to deal with, and you need to have someone around you perhaps to save you. That may not mean a specific person, but may mean a situation or a job that will going to save you from a very problematic situation. The problem, I think, is usually when you have the moon. When moon is in conjunction with a fixed star, with Andromeda constellation, this always means that you are going to become victimized by the social structure. This means that the society, this means that the people around you are going to victimize you, and you are usually going to be victimized. And of course, don't forget that the constellation of Andromeda belongs to what we call the longitude of Aries and Taurus. So even if you have this moon in Taurus, which is a very great position for moon, if there is a conjunction with a fixed star from the constellation of Andromeda, means that you may feel at ease and you may feel rich in emotions, but on the other hand, you may feel that the others are going to victimize you, and you may give a fight or try to get away from a monster, symbolical of course, a monster. And what I found very fascinating is when a person has Venus having a conjunction with a planet, with a fixed star of the constellation of Andromeda, because this is always about a powerful emotional bonding with someone. You are going to find your Perseus sooner or later. So usually this Venus is going to bring, although the drama is going to bring the good guy or the good girl that is going to save you, and I always like this kind of stories. I think the strongest and most problematic conjunction is with Saturn. When Saturn is having a conjunction with Andromeda, with a fixed star of Andromeda, this always means that there is a strong battle for you to survive, because the current circumstances of your life are not very easy. It's like living in a hostile environment and no one really understands you, and that may brings a lot of conflict and a lot of problems in your everyday life. And then we are going to Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia was, as I said, the queen of Ethiopia, and Cassiopeia starts from the 16th degree of Aries and ends on the 70th degree of Gemini. As I said, Cassiopeia was the queen of Ethiopia and was a vain and arrogant queen, and this kind of arrogance really led to almost the destruction of her kingdom. The most important fixed stars of the constellation of Cassiopeia is the Kaf or Cap, which is in the 5th degree of Taurus and 7 minutes, Schedir, which is in the 7th degree of Taurus, 47, Akird, which is 10 degree of Taurus, 15, Kich, which is 13 of Taurus, 56, Ruka, which is the 17th degree of Taurus and 56, and finally Segin, which is on the 24th degree and 46 of Taurus again. And you can see in this image Cassiopeia. We talked before about Andromeda. Let's see where Andromeda is on the night sky. You can see the constellation of Aries, and you can see triangulum between Andromeda and Aries, Pisces on the south, Pegasus on the right side, and Perseus and Cassiopeia in the north and northwest, which is always, I think, very fascinating, understanding how the constellations really walk around the night sky. So going here, we are going to talk about Cassiopeia, and you can see that these constellations are very close to Polaris, and Cassiopeia is of course always near Cepheus, her husband. And talking about Cassiopeia, we need to talk that the Nereids complained to Poseidon because the queen Cassiopeia claimed that she was the best, herself and Andromeda, and of course there was a punishment for this provoke, and of course that led for the demand to be for the daughter to be sacrificed, which is always of great importance when we're talking about those things, because we understand that usually there is a great problem when you're having Cassiopeia usually in your chart. You may have grace, you may be very educated, or you may be in power of things, or you may have a life that it is very easy and you are not having a lot of problems, and then you are doing a mistake, and unfortunately for this mistake a lot of problems arise, and while you are okay in your life, you began to feel threatened. And there is always a great threat when the planets are in conjunction with the fixed stars of the constellation of Cassiopeia. You may be sometime in your life arrogant, and this arrogance is going to lead you to great problems, or even the destruction in a specific matter. So this is always of great importance to look when you are having planets that are in conjunction with fixed stars with the constellation of Cassiopeia. And usually in a man's chart means a very dominant mother that is not leaving a lot of things to take in control for himself, and usually this woman is going to marry a man that is not having a control to his life. But if you are a woman and you have this constellation in conjunction, you are the man. You are the man of the story. You are the one that you are in control of the situation. And I think that the most problematic conjunction with the fixed stars of the constellation of Cassiopeia is Mercury, because Mercury is about talking and thinking. So when you have Mercury in conjunction with the fixed stars of Cassiopeia, that may lead to say words or speak about things you shouldn't, and also this is going to bring a lot of problems and a lot of fights. This is always a problematic situation. And also Mars having a conjunction with the constellation stars of Cassiopeia always bring a lot of fight and difficulties. But on the other hand, if you have Venus or Jupiter, usually this is going to bring you a lot of happiness in your daily life, and you are going to live in abundance, because this is something very good if you have it. And then we are going to talk about the king of Ethiopia, the husband of Cassiopeia. And let me show you. Here is Cepheus. I don't think you call it Cepheus, maybe you call it Cepheus, but in Greece it's Cepheus. So I'm going to keep the original. So Cepheus is a constellation that it is from the 18th degree of Pisces till the 7th degree of Cancer in 70 minutes. Of course, this is always a constellation about a father that he is not in control. Usually means that you may have a paternal figure that is very important in your life, and sometimes you may see a powerful man losing control and cannot be in any control of anything in his life. And there is always a separation or a conflict of this father figure. The most important fixed stars of the constellation is Arrakis in the 9th degree of Aries, 42, Alderamine in the 12th degree of Aries, 47, Kurdach in the 24th degrees of Aries, 13, Arfirk in the 5th degree of Taurus and 33, and Al-Rai in the 0 degrees of Gemini and 6. Always give 1 degree, and for my personal opinion, what I'm always saying to my students is that 1 degree is going to tell you, let's say, the big story, a general story about yourself. If you are going really to live the myth or the archetype, you need to have a conjunction less than 30 or 20 minutes of a degree. And of course, don't forget that you may have a heliacal rising and heliacal setting star, which is always of great importance. If you go to astro.com, there is a free choice if you have your chart to tell you which is your heliacal rising or setting star. And if you have one of these kind of fixed stars being a heliacal rising or setting, this is always an archetype that is going to work in your everyday life. So when you are having Cepheus being affect your personal planets, as I said, the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus and Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Ascendant and Midheaven, the 2 axes. This is always of great importance because it's going to bring a lot of family concerns, but also there is always a great paternal figure that is going to affect your life, and you're going to do a lot of things, and you're going to change a lot of things. And someday, if you are having a lot of planets in conjunction with those fixed stars, you may feel that you are this paternal figure that had everything in control, but because there was not your fault, you finally lose everything around you, and you can do anything about a disaster, and you need to deal with it and change it slowly through the time, and always waiting for the savior, which is always Perseus. Perseus is always the savior of the situation, and we have to look at it. And let's go to the savior of the situation, and let me show you. This is Cetus. Let me show you the Perseus. It is close to Andromeda. If you can see, it holds the head of Medusa. You know the fixed stars on the head of Medusa. It is very known and famous. It's called Capital Goal, and it is one of the greatest fixed stars, and the traditional astrologers use a lot this fixed star. They deal with it as very negative. The most important fixed stars of the constellation of Perseus is Capulus in the 24th degree of Taurus and 12 minutes, Algol in the 26th of Taurus and 10, Mizam 27 Taurus and 41, Miram 28 of Taurus and 42, Artix 1 degree of Gemini 09, Mirfak 2 degree of Gemini 05, and Menkib 4 degrees of Gemini and 58. And the constellation of Perseus affects from the 11th degree of Taurus till the 17th degree of Gemini, and I think that always Perseus is about you going to save someone, but while you're going to save someone, you're going to feel a lot of tensions and very bad events in your life. And of course, usually when you're having Perseus affecting your personal planets through his fixed stars, there is always a fight with Medusa, the Gorgon, but also there is always a fight about fighting your love. But don't forget that in the end Perseus was killed in a battle with Dionysus, and after he died, Zeus placed him along with Andromeda among the stars. So there is always some tragedy, a difficult situation you have to deal. You may win a lot of fights, but you need to accept that not all of the fights in our life are going to be victorious. You are going to lose some, and you need to deal with it and accept it, and not feel that things are going to become very bad just because you are going to lose a battle. And what I think of great importance is always when you are having this sun and moon, usually the luminaries having a conjunction with the stars of Perseus, is always about a battle with the father or the mother, or that you need to battle alone in dealing with things and try to prove yourself, because you are very self-criticizing and you are not leaving yourself to flourish and blossom. Something that usually means that there may be some masochistic tendencies, and also sometimes you may feel a less sexual appetite because you do not trust your own body. Usually the people that have conjunction with the constellation of Perseus, they do not trust, they are not at ease with their own body, which is also a signal of a problem in your everyday life. And there is always a problem with the father figure when you have your sun in conjunction with Perseus fixed stars, or with the mother when you're having a conjunction with the moon. And of course, this is always a story about you saving someone else and bringing happiness to your life. You are going to fight for your happiness. And we are going to talk now about the great monster, which I think is one of the greatest constellation. Cetus is a great constellation. It is always give you a lot of things and information about your daily life. And I think the sea monster always is about subconscious self-destruction and about how you're dealing with your own self. The constellation of Cetus is from the 18th degree of Pisces to the 21st degree of Taurus. This is a very big constellation, as I said. Deneb Kaitos is on the 2nd degree of Aries, 35. Batten Kaitos is on the 21st degree of Aries and 57. Mira is on the 1st degree of Taurus and 31. Kafal it's from the 9th degree of Taurus, 26. And finally Menka on the 14th degree of Taurus and 19. The constellation of Cetus is not of Greek origin. We found even through the Babylonian years that there was always some kind of demonic entities in this region of the sky. When we are finding Cetus in Greek astronomy and Greek constellation, in the Babylonian, Assyrian and Sumerian astrology and astronomy, we found demons and things that they are malevolent. This is usually a region of deep subconscious problem. And don't forget also the Bible myth of Jonah, when a whale swallowed him and Jonah remained in the belly of the beast for several days. So this constellation is also about transformation, about psychological well-being, about dealing with your negative thoughts, about dealing with your shadow, about dealing with your own fears and your self-destructive instincts. And I'm always, as a psychologist, remember Sigmund Freud talking about the two great powers of the world, which is love and death. And I'm always looking at this royal family drama, and I see Perseus and Andromeda, the power of love, and I'm seeing in Medusa and Cetus the power of death, and how these things work around our own lives. which is of course always of great importance. So there is always a need for transformation, there is always a need for psychological changing and dealing with things, which is very important. And what I found always fascinating with Ketus is that, especially the planets like Jupiter and Saturn, the transformation is much bigger and much important. But if you have fixed stars from Ketus being the heliacal rising or the heliacal setting stars, although it is a very difficult constellation to deal with, the people with these heliacal rising and setting stars are really doing very good job in changing their life and changing their own everyday situation. And if you look now on the right, you can see Pegasus right next to Pisces. Pegasus is from the 24th degree of Aquarius till the 15th degree of Aries. And the most important fixed stars is Biham in the 6th degree of Pisces and 50 minutes, Markab in the 23rd degree of Pisces and 29, Sadalbari in the 24th degree of Pisces and 23, Matar in the 25th degree of Pisces and 43, Seat from the 29th degree of Pisces 22, and Al-Janib in the 9th degree of Aries 09. Pegasus is the wind horse and the god and was the son of Poseidon and Medusa. And Poseidon raped Medusa, and through the black blood from the decapitation that Medusa was having from Perseus, Pegasus came out. And Pegasus is always about hope. Pegasus is always about change. Pegasus is always about transformation, about taking a very bad situation and making it good. I think that Pegasus is always a sign of change, about what is going to become, about doing things in the best way we can do and transforming things from bad and make them good. So when you're having Pegasus having a conjunction with your own personal planets, this is always a great sign of hope and change in your life. So these are the basic symbolism about the royal family and the drama around the royal family. I'm not going to stay anymore. I'm going to spend the rest of the 10 minutes on talking about the importance of the Ascendant, the third subject that I said I'm going to talk about today. And Ascendant in astropsychological way is about the mask, is about how I'm dealing with other people. The Ascendant Descendant axis is about how I communicate myself with another one. But right now, for example, I'm not using my Ascendant. I'm an Ascendant in Gemini. I'm a double Gemini. But right now I'm not talking to you. I'm not using my Ascendant. We are using our Ascendant in one-to-one personal communication. We are usually, when we are talking to the public, or where we are using our own social roles, we are using our midheaven. So right now, and when you are speaking to public, you are usually using the midheaven. But when I am with my parents, I am with my relationship, I'm with my friends, I'm using my Ascendant. So the Ascendant is the vehicle that I'm using to communicate with others. Also is the mask, is what I prefer to show to the people, how I want the others to understand me and to look at me. And always the Ascendant and the ruler of the Ascendant, which is also very important, is about how my future and my life is going to go and how I'm going to live my main period of my life. Let me show you a chart. I'm pretty sure that you know this chart. This is the chart of Marilyn Monroe, and we can see this ascendant being on Leo. Of course, you can understand and you can catch the power of this Leo ascendant, this drama, this powerful image that Marilyn Monroe had. Of course, that helped a lot. Also, the Venus and Jupiter being on the 7th, moon in the 7th is always very good when you are going to have a profession that has to do with the public. Moon in the 7th is very good with the public. And of course, we can see this opposition between Neptune and Moon and Jupiter, and we all know that she was an actress. But if you look at the aspects of the ascendant, you are going to see that the ascendant is forming an almost exact semi-sextile with Pluto, is forming a sextile with the Sun, and also is forming an opposition with the Moon. The semi-sextile, although is not something that astrologers usually use, I think is very important because it gives you subtle information. Semi-sextile is always an aspect of information. So without knowing, because this is a secondary aspect, and usually the secondary aspects are unconscious, she knew how to use her power and her will to do things. This Plutonian energy, although running through the 12th, is the collective unconscious, because she was a symbol for the collective unconscious. We can see that, and this Pluto having a conjunction with the North Node is that a use of the collective unconscious of using her as a symbol. But this semi-sextile helped her for her own mask to be very powerful and have the ability to use the specific characteristics in order to be in power with the public. On the other hand, we can see this sextile with the Sun, and there was always easy for her to be brilliant and shine in her life and be a person of attention, and always that helped her a lot to win the public, and the public really loved her. But on the other hand, we can see always this opposition with the Moon. The Moon is not just on the 7th, is forming an opposition with the Ascendant, and this always gives us the ability to affect and be in power with the public. Of course, as we all know, the T-square between Moon, Neptune, Jupiter and Saturn brought a lot of problems with her father. Her father was not existent at all, and also she was having a depression and etc. But you have to look also this ruler of the Ascendant, and the ruler of the Ascendant was forming an island. That means that was having a conjunction with Mercury, and they were both in a very close conjunction without having any other important Ptolemaic aspect. So she was really in power in using her communication skills and her public mask in order to win the favor of other people. Of course, this Mercury also has some problems with this close conjunction with the Sun. But when you are looking at the Ascendant, you are always looking how the people are going to understand you and about your personal magnetism and your mask. But on the other hand, you may understand how your future is going to be. Of course, this is only one part of her life. We all know that she felt alone, depressive, she died very young. This is something that are going to understand later on in future astrological podcasts. But what I want you for now to remember is that usually the ascendant and the ruler of the ascendant gives us a lot of information about a person's life and about how he's going to deal with other people. Again, I want to thank you very much for being with me for a whole hour. I hope you liked the second episode of this podcast. We are going to be again together the next week with another great subject to talk with, and of course with the importance of the great cycles that we're going to discuss the next episode. Thank you very much for your time. Bye bye.